Everyone, good evening. I'm Chamin Hettiarachchi. We have been actually discussing about Sri Lankan political situation in detail. I have been, posting many posts and notes on also videos on my YouTube and Facebook, basically to evaluate and understand what's going on, particularly with the recent elections and the appointment of the new government. Now, today I want to talk about building a new political movement or social movement based on what we have experienced and what's going on in the country now. This is just kind of academic exercise so that people can learn from this and think further on developing new ideas and forming a new political or social movement. Now, the point or the topic I am going to talk about today is how to use blue ocean strategy, which is it's a kind of commonly discussed topic on strategic management, and how to use this concept in forming a new political movement, even can be a party later, or something new in Sri Lankan political arena. So let's discuss about it very briefly. Now, you might have already noted that during the recent times with the elections, actually two elections from presidential election to parliament elections, Mahinda Rajapaksa's Rajapaksa government, or headed by Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Mahinda Rajapaksa and other the family, they were able to win the elections with the huge margins and very high mandate or people's mandate. Now, if you look at their politics, it's basically they have formed their. I have to say that it's very successful campaign, but they are based on values of nationalism, mainly Sinhala nationalism, and then supremacy of Sinhala Buddhism. Also highlighting the rural economy, power of rural masses, and all to some extent dividing the the ethnicities and the religious group by segregating them. So those are the values. If you look at other parties, for example, Samagi Jana Balavegia is like the alternative opposition. They are also along with same lines, not very different, even though they talk about multiculturalism and minority rights, but they are also trying to compete with Rajapaksa campaign. In addition to that, you have Muslim parties, Tamil parties, they are also along the same lines of nationalism and separation of people from along ethnic or religious lines. JVP, I would say also, they don't really do that, but still they don't have any new ideas. What they're trying to do is look at the, the weaknesses or shortcomings of groups like Rajapaksas, and then try to do the better. So they are like more reform organization or movement, try to say that we can do better. We are not corrupting. We are not, stealing. So they are better in moral values, but still they don't have new innovation in terms of political ideas. So my suggestion is to look at this concept of blue ocean strategy and learn from that to form a new political movement. So let me first show you a video to understand what is blue ocean. Let me share the screen first. I think you have to. Okay, so as you might have already noted, Blue Ocean strategy is very simply is that in order to capture the market share, this is in the marketing terms or
Hello
strategy.
everyone, and welcome to Group D's summary of the first 4 chapters of Blue Ocean Strategy. Over the next 10 minutes, we will guide you.
Yeah, so basically the idea is that uh, to compete normally, competitors what they do is they try to compete in the same market segments or with the same customers. So this intensifies existing competition. It reduces prices, and the competition get fierce. So this is called red ocean strategy. That now, for example, Samagi Jana Balavegi, now if you apply this context, is trying to get the customers or voters from Rajapaksa or Podujana Peramuna Pohottu party and win from the opposition. So that's still red ocean. Now, the idea of blue ocean means you create a new market, you create a new customer segment, not compete with the existing competition and not try to get the customers from them. So now in political terms, now again I kind of highlight, if you look at Pohottu party or Pohottu voters, they are mainly driven by nationalism, Sinhala supremacy, uh, uh, the rural orientation. Now that means, for example, you can have a national economy based on rural development, and also uh, kind of separating ethnic groups or religious groups from the main stream and having a strong anti-Western agenda. So these are the political values of that group. Now, if you want to uh, develop a new value system, according to the uh, Blue Ocean strategy, the idea is innovation in value. Now, but now people can say no, it's a dominant thinking that if you want to win the election, you have to win voters from the Rajapaksa's camp. But if you look at the current, recent political results, if you look at how people have voted, 75% people have only voted in uh, the general election. Out of that, 60% people voted for the winning party, that is Rajapaksa uh, uh, government. So that means only 45% of the eligible voters have voted for Rajapaksa regime. That means 55% or more than half of the population in Sri Lanka, they have not voted for Kotara Rajapaksa or Mahinda Rajapaksa government. So that means there is big space of people, enough number of people where a new party or new political group can be formed based on new values. Now, Blue Ocean strategy in this context is driving or developing a new political movement based on entirely opposite or different values. Now, based on what I mentioned before, what are those values? Now, I believe that these are internationalism. Now, people will, based on Sri Lankan uh, uh, demography, there's a big demand for um, internationalization of the society. There are 2 million people living overseas. A lot of people want to go outside. People get education from other countries. So it's a big demand which is not served by the current ruling party or their political agendas. The second thing is, more liberal thinking. For example, at the moment, what we have is more backward or more nationalistic thinking, but we need more liberal thinking, welcoming new things, welcoming technology, welcoming outsiders, new ideas, Western values. So liberal ideas, internationalization, more market economy, uh, tolerance to minorities, adapting new values, for example, equality or empathy towards LGBT communities, gender rights, and new trends, for example, green energy, environmental um, consciousness. Those kind of things are not discussed at the moment in Sri Lankan politics. So there's a big demand for that. Unfortunately, these are not met in a right way. Now, blue ocean strategy in the sense in this political situation is to cater to those needs of the people. Maybe they are hidden at the moment. You need to have education, you need to have awareness, but these are also globally new trends, and also that can be, formed in Sri Lankan context. So I'm talking about futuristic politics, or politics by looking at the global trends. Of course, it should be a national movement and national organization, but we will not, for example, be bound by what is preached by Mahinda Rajapaksa government, that regime and their media. So we have to look at, ask people to go beyond, look beyond, think beyond what is, kind of spread through there are no hero. So look at internet, look at international media, look at what's happening in the other countries. So there's a big vacancy or space to form a political party based on those values. So that is what I mentioned by futuristic political movement to campaign against Rajapaksa's, not only Rajapaksa, but I just say that word because even people like Sajid Premadasa, they are also competing the same ideas, that they want to be seen as more Buddhist or more Sinhalese than Mahinda Rajapaksa. Now we are talking about futuristic, internationally oriented, liberal, more accommodating, inclusive, uh, Western value-based political movement. Okay. Now, as I told you, there's a space, but you have to develop this. This doesn't mean that automatically people will come and accept those values. They may be hidden inside their, thinking. Priority will be based on what is currently available in the society. Will be about nationalism, about your religious consciousness, about how rural you are. But this can be, changed with correctly organized, political value-based, futuristic political movement and social movement. Now, how you do that? That again is a matter of building an organization or building a movement from the beginning. Now, as I told you, it's not automatically, it's just confrontational approach towards what is happening now, but we have to look at this as a diffusion of ideas or diffusion of innovation in the society from the beginning. So let's say we have dominant nationalistic Sinhala Buddhist majority oriented mentality in the country politically. So you develop a new idea which is futuristic, multicultural, uh, uh, internationalization uh, of ideas. So now this can be considered as a new concept, innovation in political values, and you have to diffuse to the society. So now I will also introduce this idea, the model called uh, diffusion adaptation code, innovation, diffusion of innovation. So you can see in this model how a new concept is diffused through a society, maybe in a country like Sri Lanka. This is again from a strategic marketing approach, but This can be also used for establishing idea or spreading idea in a society, political or any other idea. Now let's look at that one. Share the screen again. Okay.
Have you ever noticed that some people adopt new products or behaviors sooner than others? In 1962, Everett Rogers, a professor of world psychology, developed a theory called the diffusion of innovations to explain this phenomenon. Rogers found that individuals within any society fall into one of 5 different adopter groups based on how early or how quickly they adopt an innovation. Rogers' theory tells us that if you want to promote the widespread adoption of a new behavior like these, you need to market to each adopter group differently using distinct communication channels and messages. Let's look at each group to find out more. The innovators are a small but important group because they are always the first to learn about and adopt an innovation. They are risk-taking, adventurous, and like being on the cutting edge. The innovators are responsible for introducing innovations to the larger population because they share their experiences with their friends and communities. The early adopters are also a small, forward-thinking group and are often highly respected as opinion leaders. Their endorsement of an innovation plays a key role in what we call crossing the chasm, which is when the adoption of an innovation bridges the gap between the trendsetters and the majority. About 2/3 of people in a population fall into either the early or late majority groups. The early majority take time to make decisions. They will observe others' experiences and will only adopt the product once they are convinced it has real benefits and that it is the new status quo. The late majority are more resistant to change, but they are very responsive to peer pressure. They want innovations to be very well tested and widely used before they will risk trying it. Finally, the last group to adopt a new product or innovation is called the laggards. Laggards are highly resistant to change, and they also can be hard to reach with marketing campaigns because they often have very minimal exposure to media. Laggards wait until the innovation is completely mainstream before they adopt it. In some cases, they never do. Think of some global innovations in recent years. Social media, for example, spread very fast and many people adopted it within a few years. Other innovations, such as the use of solar power, spread much more slowly. It may take decades to reach widespread adoption. So the next time you're promoting a new product or behavior, consider the theory of diffusions of innovations and tailor your communication channels and messages. This will improve your chance of catalyzing widespread adoption.
Okay, so now you have well understood the concept of diffusion of innovation. That simply means that not everybody will respond or accept new idea, new concept, new political movements or political values equally. So as you know, as the video mentioned, innovators are the people like me who will introduce the idea by looking at my personal experience and others' experience by analysis. So we will kind of introduce new idea so that early adapters, innovators, and then the early adapters. Early adapters will pick from us. They will have more power in influencing the society compared to people like me. Let's say somebody like Kumar Sangakkar or somebody like that. So people will look at them as the ideals or role models. If they, when the early adopters accept the new concept, they will spread to the society. And now, when the society learns it, it is called crossing the chasm. That is like to get into the from trendsetters to the majority. And in the majority, there are two types of majority. One is early majority, like up to 50% of the population. Within next, let's say, a few years, will within 2 years will get and learn the concepts and understand the value of a new political movement, political ideas. So they will be, welcoming, adapting, and they're changing their behavior from, say, opposition to neutral to active engagement. Now, then you have, after let's say 2 years, you will have for next 2 years late majority, people who are influenced by early majority, but they are normally reactive people. Now, at the moment, of course, they are already with the nationalism and existing political ideologies. So they will also start changing. And the last group is laggards, who will not change most probably within the next few years. Now, but then we have to change our communication channel, change the way we communicate to reach to these different groups. So the basic idea is that, let's say, for example, for next election, you have about 5 years. Now, if that time is used effectively, new political movement, political values can be diffused to the society according to the diffusion curve. Just to summarize again, now at the moment, Sri Lanka, you can see it's very nationalistic, very majority oriented, uh, you know, very local or rural oriented political culture is there, which is dominant culture, which is used by the ruling party and even the main opposition and other political parties. Now, it is not the case for the 100% population of Sri Lanka, as I told you already. Only 45% people have voted for that. There are 55% people have either voted against or are not voted. So we can start a new political movement based on the values of internationalization, internationalism, future orientation, multiculturalism, equal, access approach to all communities in the country, new rights like other minorities like LGBT community, gender rights, environmental consciousness, other, natural living, meeting United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So what is not currently discussed in the country in the main political domain can be adopted in the futuristic political movement. And in developing it, spreading that to the society, you have to understand and think along the diffusion curve. That is, to first reach to the innovators, and then early adopters, early majority, late majority accordingly. You can reach the, we call it, just beyond the threshold and get to the masses. So that is possible, and that's my message today. So for the people who are interested to develop a new political culture in the country, don't get frustrated or disappointed. I hear a lot of people want to go out of the country, stay away from the politics, but it's not the case. There are in the world also, there are such examples where liberty and humanity have lost their kind of upper hand, particularly in a case of Hitler, for example. Even recent times, even Trump was an example recently. So, but as Obama mentioned, let's keep the hope for the future and for the goodness of the people, of the humanity, and organize accordingly. So all the best, and I hope to see you with the new political movement thriving in Sri Lanka soon. All the best, and ciao.